Welcome to the Nailed It Wall.
Ah! On this week's episode, we're going to catch you up on our lives. Who inspired us to get back into the podcast game and see where we're going. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. I'm Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.
And I'm Miss Schofield.
Well, it's hard to believe, partner. Episode 54 of the Nailed It Wall is back. I wish we could say we went on a sabbatical. We went missing for a year, took a little break, and did something cool. But we didn't. We were just teaching. We kind of had to.
Well, COVID was in the middle of that.
Yeah, exactly. We had to disconnect to connect.
This is true.
And we kind of turned off our Twitter for the last year, and we often talked at times about wanting to tweet things out, and a mask was pulled down over someone's nose. We didn't want somebody on the interweb saying that kid's mask is not over their face, and we had a lot of anxiety about that, and I felt like we saw a lot of negative energy on Twitter, and we just turned off Twitter, we turned off the podcast, and we went on sabbatical.
Yeah, we hit pause.
We did hit pause.
Yeah.
But the good news is the Nailed It Wall is back. As we start every episode, we're going to talk about how do you nail it or fail it this week. And you said you have a good story for us.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking there's a lot of nailed it, failed it that would have happened since our last one. But something happened today that reminded me of something that's been happening. So in my house, there have been scorpions, and that is not something a Californian has been raised to deal with. So when we moved here, I just thought this is good. Scorpions are going to be what, like a hand size, they're going to be huge, and they're going to be these. I had an image, and they're nothing like that I have seen. However, my daughter did get stung by one, and I felt really bad. And then I got stung, and I think that's when I became invincible. And so today...
You're a true Arizonan now.
I am. And now I have very little fear with them. And so there were 4 in the backyard, and I made... I put them to rest. But I feel very proud of this because I have fear of spiders. I don't want to make myself sound like I have zero fears. I do have a deep-seated fear of spiders. However, I took charge of those things, and I felt very proud and empowered.
I love it. Well, great story.
Yeah, thanks.
You survived to tell the story.
I did.
I love that. My nailed it is in my class with my 8th graders. We've been building unnecessary inventions.
Yes.
And have you seen this guy, Matty Benito? I think I said his name correct. He's a TikToker. He's on IG, YouTube, and he builds all these unnecessary inventions.
Oh, I saw something that you had in your class, so I think that was the guy.
Yeah, and he's pretty awesome. And it's just fun to create engineering projects that get the kids excited, to build an unnecessary invention.
Agreed.
As well as something that they love, which is TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and all these things. And the students, the Hummingbird robot kits are amazing. You have servos, you have LED lights, you have to code all these things, and then you have to build. So you're taking code, engineer, and build all these things, and build an unnecessary invention, and they're coming out pretty fantastic. I mean, I have one that's like that has a random code, and like you go to Chick-fil-A, you're overwhelmed with your sauces.
True.
And it's the saucer. You click a button, and it spins around, and it gives you a random sauce, and that's what you got to go with.
I absolutely love that. I love it. Now, how good does it feel to see kids making again?
Oh, it's the best. I mean, being able to collaborate and work together, and I can't talk about like how excited it is. Like every day, I feel like we are back to where we were pre-COVID, not in terms of safety-wise and schools, but it's still there.
Creativity.
Yeah, but just them building and talking and collaborating. We talk about those soft skills all the time, and it just gets us so excited.
It's so true. And, another thing for me is being able to teach my exploratory in a different way. I had to kind of shift gears this year. And
Tell us why.
Well, I had all my iPads pretty much taken from, they needed to be, I'm not really sure, repurposed.
Not by burglars.
Yeah, not by burglars.
There's an iOS update. iPads, when it get to a certain point, and then the district came in and just
Yeah.
took these iPads
I had a lot
because
of
of
iPads.
a security worry. And these are the things you write grants, you love these things, and
That's
then
true. That was
and then
tough.
district stuff.
It was tough. And, a huge kudos to Mrs. O. She broke that news to me very gently and has been a total rock star trying to procure a few iPads for my class. And, I'm super grateful for that. But I say to you all the time, sometimes we don't want to change. However, something shifts and it forces you to do something different, and it ends up being something that you really just are so grateful for. And I am grateful for the creative opportunity that I had in this situation to teach in a different way in different things that I had done before. One thing I still did was Rubik's Cube, which was a huge success.
Humble
for
brag
school.
to yourself.
Yeah.
The entire class of 8th graders solved the Rubik's Cube.
And remarkable speed too. And typically I have more students in a class that have solved it before, and so I end up having a lot of helpers. So it makes it a lot easier. But this time I only had one student that had solved it prior, and I had to make myself available to a lot of students. But man, they are just so sharp, and that was a huge success. So really, I've just loved the STEM year and seeing all the hands-on stuff. And like you said, it's the collaboration, it's the excitement. I don't have to talk my students into doing anything that we're doing each day. They come, they're excited to do STEM, they love to be makers, but they just love to be interacting and doing, and I think not that, a content doesn't allow for any of that, but it does. It's a different style of teaching and learning. So I've really loved it. It's so good to be back and
And you have a new science curriculum.
Yes, I do. And I actually really like it. I am really pleasantly surprised. I know a lot of teachers have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to put this curriculum together, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And it's been fun playing around with it and, trying things out and seeing my students embrace it. And again, it's not something I would have chosen for myself. However, it has shaken up what I was doing, and it's forced me to be more creative in different ways, and it's been cool. I like it.
Well, it's been so exciting just hearing your stories every day. I mean, the Rubik's Cube, the Genius Hour projects.
Oh, yeah, that's
Can you
right.
talk about some of your Genius Hour projects your 8th graders are doing to finish up the quarter?
Yeah, it's so weird to me where you can do some things over and over and over. And you and I were fortunate enough to lead a couple breakout sessions for Legend Springs and our school in, I don't know what, the first day of back to work for us.
First day back.
Yeah, it was rough.
I remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah, but it feels like ages ago. I presented mine on Genius Hour projects. It's something I'm super passionate about, and no matter how many times I do it, every time something new evolves, something new surfaces, whether it's a topic or just the approach that I take when I deliver it, or their approach in embracing it. But this time it's been really cool. I have several girls working together to create a flash mob, which is flash mobs aren't dead. Actually, some of my boys asked, what's a flash mob? So I pulled up a video and showed, and I just forget how much I love seeing those. They just make me happy. Kind of just think about that, the ins and outs of a flash mob. That's a lot to coordinate, and timing, choreography, working with, just what a day entails, and so how you could fit that in and what that would look like. I've been really proud of them. And then I have a whole group of boys basically doing a Football for Dummies video, and they've recorded all the positions, the point of football, for someone that doesn't know anything about football, all the ins and outs from their perspective. And I am really, really impressed with that. I have someone that's working on hypnosis, and someone that is interviewing several teachers to kind of talk about what their past is and what inspires them. And there's so many different angles, but all the kids, I just check on them briefly, and they are just so self-motivated and very much on task. And I'm really excited to see these finished projects. And right now, as it stands, we have a STEAM night on the calendar.
May the 4th.
May the 4th be with you. Shout out to Mr. Footy. And so we're very excited, and usually we showcase several things. Now, you had something really cool that happened in your class that you're going to showcase hopefully on STEAM Night as well.
The paper roller coasters.
Those were incredible.
They are incredible. Shout out to Mrs. O. She's let me keep them in the library
She's a rock
until
star.
until STEAM Night. And the kids, I've never had so much fun with marbles, like just getting the marbles out there. And the kids just loved that. They built some of the coolest paper roller coasters, an awesome engineering project. If you go to paperrollercoasters.com, some of the coolest thing, they have advanced mechanisms that you can download
those
as
were-
well. Best $9.99 I think I've spent as a teacher, and the kids just had so much fun building them. They came up with names for their roller coasters. They were building like a whole theme park. One had like their roller coaster end going through John Cena's mouth.
That was really
And
cool.
it had some great names. One was called the Rick Roller or the
Hilarious.
Stock Market. So the students were just so creative with that, and just had so much fun at the beginning of the year. Again, that hands-on, just getting
Yeah.
them creative, building, and it just feels so good to be back.
Yeah.
Speaking of being back, and so many people asked us, be like, what's going on with the pod? I haven't heard a new episode. We need a new episode. So big shout out to Mrs. O, our main man Phil, and especially Kevin Mee.
Kevin,
Now, do you remember?
Wait, just pause for 1 second. Prior to all of those people, do you remember the first one that happened this summer?
Are you talking about the student you bumped into?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you need to share that story. So you were hanging out with Mrs. Copenhaver.
Yes.
Talking about a favorite student she had.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So we went to coffee. And it was several of the teachers together, and she talked about a student that just really stood out to her as someone that she thought was a tremendous individual. And I believe his name was Holden, right? I believe that's what his name is.
I was not there.
This is like we have to remember, like that was summer, and we had summer, and then now we're back in school. So my brain's a little fuzzy. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to have a correction in our next episode. However, I feel pretty good. So I remember it being a unique name and one that I really liked the sound of, and so it stuck in my brain. And then shortly after, the same day, I went into Target and I just picked a random aisle, and there were several open, but I just picked that one at the cashier. And as the young man was ringing in my stuff, I looked at his name tag, and his name was Holden. And so I introduced myself to him and said that, someone had spoken highly of him, and just kind of told him the backstory. And he said, well, I know who you are. And was very confused about how he knew me, because I started teaching after he had left Sierra Verde. And he said, well, I know you and Mr. Lane do the podcast, the Nailed It Wall. I listened to that. And he's getting his teaching certificate, right? He's in the teaching program. And so he was saying, as part of his program, he has been listening to that, and I have to, how fired up were we?
Oh, that was so awesome.
I mean, we had chills.
Because the whole reason we wanted to do this podcast was to show everyone the positivity of education.
Yeah.
All the great stories, all the things that you can do, what we get to do every single day, and how full our buckets are.
Oh my gosh. It was tremendous, and was one of those things. And you and I, we're really big on signs, right? We believe in these signs, and we also believe in timing. And we thought, that's the universe reminding us, okay, unpause the podcast. And we had every intention of doing that. But then, we summered so hard. There was so much living to do after everything was so shut down from COVID. And, it just kind of got put on the back burner. And then when school started, that was just full tilt. So then, go ahead. What was our next thing?
And then we ran into Walgreens to grab something. We weren't really paying attention. And then somebody looks up and says, how's the podcast going? And we lost our mind because it was Kevin Mee. Now,
Mee.
we have been wanting to do a podcast for the Moxie Girls to kind of get started for years and years. And we talked about it for years.
We
and just
did.
trying to find the time to sit down and do this and actually learn the process of how to get a podcast going. Let me tell you, it's a lot easier today to get a podcast up and going
It's true.
than it was a couple years ago.
It really is.
Oh, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
It's like night and day.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
yeah.
we were talking about the podcast one day, and Kevin May, great kid, go to
He
Walgreens.
is a great kid.
And he said to us, we were excited because he was an 8th grader, and still podcasts weren't what they were 3 years ago. And he said, I love podcasts. And then he said something snarky to us about our podcast, and we said, you know what, Kevin?
No, he said it was never going to happen.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah, he said it will never happen. That's what he said.
Great memory.
Yeah.
He did say that.
Yeah, he did say that.
And then I think you responded to him. You said
You're
it will happen. You will never be a guest on our podcast.
Yeah, because we were very much, we were righteous about that, and we knew that we were going to put together.
We were getting
podcast.
close at this point.
We were.
We already had the artwork down. Like, we were starting to learn the steps.
He just didn't know how much we were invested in this and how much this was like going to be our thing. And so, kudos to him. He could have just let that moment go, but nope, he didn't.
These are the things why we love being educators.
Yeah,
we love to teach. we love Kevin, and we were gonna turn him into our own Matt Dillon.
Yeah, no, Matt Damon. Yeah.
Matt Damon.
Matt Dillon would be good
Jimmy
too.
Kimmel,
He's famous.
and we're gonna end every episode and be like, "We ran out of time, Kevin," and that's
right.
how we were gonna end it. And
That's
he had a
right.
good chuckle about that.
Yeah, he's
he,
good.
he's a good sport
He
about
really
that,
is.
and it's so cool. And we're
Second sign.
sign. Is there another sign you want to talk about?
Well, and then, that you said, our buddy Phil asked
Phil.
you about the podcast. Carla has mentioned the podcast. I mean, it really is one of those things
The Nailed It wall has been downloaded now on 6 different continents.
Yes, that was so exciting.
We want to get to Antarctica. So any scientists in Antarctica,
Just our podcast. We don't mind not going there anytime soon. But if we would like our podcast to go and travel, and the podcast can tell us how it was. It seems cold.
and in our year sabbatical, I think the one thing I regret was not having time to sit down and record a podcast during this COVID year to share all these stories. But there's so many great stories, so many things that we love to do, so many inspiring, uplifting stories that we don't have as part of that journal that we can go back and be like, oh, remember this happened during the COVID year. And, we're not going to look back. But the one thing that I was super proud of was Lael and Madison.
Yes.
They were inspired by our podcast, and some of these influencers, one of the gifts she got was someone bought her 5 minutes with her favorite podcaster or TikToker, and he encouraged her to just go for it. Sit down and record a podcast. And they were in 2 different places, and they recorded a podcast through Zoom. They got it on iTunes and went through the whole thing. I'm blanking on the name. I hit the subscribe button. I hope it's still going. But still, it was so cool that we want to get to the point of doing the NPR podcast middle school challenge that they do with our students.
Definitely.
And these 2 students went out as 8th graders and created their own podcast.
Well, honestly, I don't know that all students recognize the power of their voice and how important it is to hear individual perspectives and stories and interests. We say it all the time, but there really is a podcast for every single person. And I feel that especially now that kids have been they were so isolated and cut off, I think that it is a really great way for them to connect with others and for other kids to connect with people that are like-minded of whatever the subject is. And so I really hope that's something I know you and I are really focused on for this coming year and years to come, is getting that to be more mainstream. And we did write a grant to expand our recording studio, and that one did not get approved, but we still will continue to take our shots there.
And it's like every celebrity, athlete, Joe Schmo has a podcast.
I love Joe Schmo.
Yeah,
He's cool.
And everyone has a podcast now, and whoever you really enjoy, whether they're on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, their podcast is a big part of their social empire and how they connect with fans and get their story out there. And something that we've always been passionate about and we love so much that 3 years later, it's insane how many podcasts are out there, how many different platforms there are. We got an email, we just had to click a little thing, and then our podcast was put on Amazon Podcasts,
that's
and
right.
we're all over just with this. It's insane, and it gets me excited, and I'm like, oh, this person just started a podcast.
Yeah. One, even looking at Mrs. O, she's like the podcast queen, and she's constantly telling us about different things that she listens to. And
She had a great idea. Do you
what
remember
was
her
that?
idea?
No, what was it?
Remember, she said on the podcast, or maybe she said it was on announcements, they had, was it candy corn that tastes like turkey dinner?
Oh yeah,
And
then
like
we
they had
should
different things. We
taste-
should taste them
we
and
should
kind of
taste
see
them.
there.
I forgot that she did say that.
And you know my stance on candy corn. Not a
Yeah,
fan. Hard
I know.
pass.
But how would you feel about eating candy corn that was turkey and gravy flavored? That would be rough. I mean, yeah. So I love the interactiveness of our podcast, and that we're willing to, take things. I mean, it's just so good to be back. I mean, not to digress, but I was thinking of how cool it is to have, different people talk to us about the pod, and that's a really cool thing. But even just how much more connected everyone is with the announcements this year, and what a strong community that has been, and all of the people that are coming together to make that so much a unique thing on our campus. And although we are the face on it, it's very much a collaborative community thing on our campus that I feel incredibly honored to be part of. And I just love how that's blossomed this year, more now than ever, even after COVID.
And I love the podcast. I truly, it just feels so good to be back, sit in front of the mic,
It does.
recording, knowing that this podcast is going to be uploaded.
In Antarctica.
And hopefully, and it's just so cool. But the thing is, we love sharing our stories.
Yeah.
We love being positive, telling people how great it is to be a teacher. Some of the things that aren't so great when there's an iOS update and your iPads are taken away. We keep it real. That's what we
true.
do.
That's true.
But the thing I love the most is when we have other educators on, people that aren't in education, and we get to share their stories and the things that we do throughout the course of the year, whether it's esports, Astro Camp, the business side of things, authors, teachers at the high school. It's so great to share those stories, and with Zoom, I don't think we would know how to do that without COVID hitting, and even know what Zoom was.
I totally agree. You have to take over. My brain just totally went blank. I had my train of
All
thought.
right. Well, and this year is so exciting. We sent out a survey email to parents about Astro Camp, which is maybe the most amazing field trip any kid could go on.
Without
and
a doubt.
The last 2 years, I mean, we were 1 week away to go before COVID really hit Arizona and kind of shut everything down.
Yeah.
Before everyone went in lockdown. So for the last 2 years, we haven't had the opportunity to go to Astro Camp. This year, we're going to put it in before the board, kind of see where they go. We emailed out an interest form to our parents tonight.
Such
So
positive
that's so
feedback.
exciting. Esports has been on hold. We're getting Rocket League started up. We have 2 JV teams in the West Coast Rocket League team, which is California, New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, which is so exciting because we're getting our kids playing on the biggest stage there and kind of see where their skills rank in terms of the national level there on the West Coast there. And I'm just so excited about these things of normalcy. The podcast is coming back. I mean, Kevin Me, we shared the Kevin Me story,
I do. I think that's what feels so good is
My question for you,
tell
will
me your
Kevin
question.
Me ever be a guest? That was a harsh statement.
it
That
was
a harsh
statement. But you know what? Here's the thing.
It did motivate us.
I was gonna say our haters are our motivators, and what I do know is Kevin Me is a really, really cool kid, and I would love to hear his story. And the fact that he got us to finally,
We didn't even recognize him.
We did not recognize. Well, let's be honest. He was wearing a mask, so
That's true.
that makes
And
it a
Crocs
little bit
with socks.
cheeky. Probably so.
He
I
was.
think you're right. And but we will never take for granted a field trip or being able to put cardboard projects in front of students and then in their hands, and even them just touching a Rubik's Cube or getting an esports club together, doing the school play. I mean, it's looking like that is a for sure thing, and just all
You
of
must be
these
excited.
things. I am excited. I'm really excited.
Has it been 2 years or 1 year since the teachers been able to do the staff production?
Well, we did Frozen so ours would have just been, we missed 1 year, right?
1 year.
Because the kids missed 2, but we missed just 1. And so, just, I think that's the thing is, one thing we've always been good at, but I want to make sure that everybody knows there's so much to celebrate in education. There's so much to be grateful for and excited about. And I feel like it's so easy to be negative, but now more than ever, I just feel like we're so thankful to be in person, to have these experiences, and we don't want to take them for granted, but we also want to just really make these things come alive and bring them back to that full, like, the full potential that they have. Because how giddy were we about the esports when that was just, I mean, it was like it was this brand new budding program, and everything just got shut down. And it just, I mean, I went to volleyball games, and there's cheering, and it's just,
NJHS is back. Stugo is back.
It's so cool. It really just is so cool. And I feel like you and I constantly are talking about how truly grateful we are to not be online or be so separate from the kids. Like they can work together, we can collaborate, there's things that they can do again that they hadn't been able to. And I never want to take that for granted again. So I just am very excited about this year.
As you should.
I know.
As you should. I mean, just every day the energy is there. We do the announcements, and we're getting ready to bring students back for the second quarter, as long as things continue on the same path. Yeah. And we're so excited about that. Mm-hmm. We've been holding it down as a 1-2, and Ryan Scientist pops in there from time to time when his schedule deems fit, and we love having him on there. He like. The people love him. And
they don't even
we
know.
Always say the most powerful voice is the student's voice. And Mr. Foot popped his head in my car the other day, and he saw Ryan in the back, and he just got so excited. He's like, "I know you!" And you should see Ryan's face. He just got so excited. He feels like a celebrity. And we've had so much fun, but we miss the kids leading that effort. And we had, before COVID hit, we had a cast of 25.
Yeah. And
it truly was like a production every single day of the people doing little things. And it's exciting for all these things. I mean, we're trying not to take too much on our plate, but we're trying to move forward just because we're so excited to give these students these opportunities.
I want to take one more moment to just give one other person a shout out, and that is Stephanie Hoffpower, who I met at the staff bunco thing that we did, whatever. And remember,
it was bunco.
Okay.
Don't hurt Mrs. Copenhaver's feelings.
It was bunco.
Who doesn't love bunco?
I just meant, like, I don't know what we were calling that night, because it was supposed to be like a social gathering. So I don't know. I mean, it was bunco, but I didn't know what we were calling the night. So anyhow,
tell your story.
My point is, if you recall, when I met her, she said, "Oh, I know you and Mr. Lane do the podcast because I was inspired by what you guys did."
The morning announcements.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Sorry. The morning announcements is what I meant to say. And, that inspiration. So you're right. That wasn't the podcast, but it was the announcements. But just being able to hear those things where they make a difference to other people. And I think that was the same thing for the announcements as it was for the podcast, where we felt very touched and honored to be able to have the platforms that we do and see people do it. Like you said, Madison and Lael with the podcast, and then the announcements. Even though she said she has erased all proof that those announcements existed, I still was very touched by that.
It's a lot of work, and we love every second of it. We love the podcast. You get better and better with every episode, and we were even shocked that before we went on our little press pause sabbatical that we'd filmed 53 episodes.
Yeah.
And we were just churning them out week after week, and we're coming back rebranded, not with a new logo. We still love our logo, but we're gonna do quicker, shorter podcasts, 30 minutes. That's our goal each week, and to kind of touch in there and share these stories and show what kindness and passion and motivation and what students are doing on the global scale.
I agree. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I don't know about you, but this felt good.
This did feel good.
And
Good to be back.
it feels good to be back, people. Welcome back. We need Mace here. I said I wouldn't sing, but I'm singing on our first
I
podcast
love that
back.
you can.
That was episode 54, people. But as we always say, if you can be anything, be kind. Well, if you like more stories like that, why not check out our pictures, the links we share, the videos we share. Take a look inside our classroom and our crazy lives by following us on Twitter. You can find me at Mr. Lane the STEM Guy.
And me at a positive proton.
And if you want to check out our SV Viper news team, check us out at SV Viper Pit, no spaces, on the YouTube.